Alrighty, hey yo, what is up, Knights? Aegis Rick here, bringing you guys an overview and my opinions on the 2018 KDNF Winter Festival that just happened here on Christmas Eve. Now, this year I decided to tune into a live stream recap that was actually done by J.K. Rowling on the DFO Discord, and I just got to give him a huge round of applause for that translation. I was actually at my parents' house for this Christmas, and I was tuning in, and it was pretty damn well. But anyway, guys, like usual, I've got a few tabs open that we can use as a springboard for this discussion, so I'll just quickly go through them, give them credits where they are due. Of course, J.K. Rowling, the KDNF hero. He also went back and did a developer translation, as you guys can see here. This is actually the second time I've actually recorded this video, as you guys will soon find out, mostly because while it was interesting to find out what was getting released in the KDNF Winter Festival, the actual servers in KDNF actually got them soon after, so there was a lot more details than we initially got. So I'm going to re-record this video because we do got a lot more details, but to kind of coincide with this whole video, I'm going to be using YukinoKaori's translation, or basically recap of the event, and it's as succinctly as possible here. You guys can see I'm just going to be talking about all the subjects here. I also want to give a quick shout out to Raytel. Mostly because Raytel was kind of a whistleblower. He actually made a post a couple weeks before the announcement of KDNF Festival, the official announcements. He was kind of whistleblowing there's possibility of a 5th class being released in KDNF. Indeed, he was correct. He was actually had a lot of motion auras that were for the male Slayer as well as the female Mage classes, hidden new sprite animations. This is a big deal, and Raytel kind of found out, yes, we do have 2 new classes added to the game. Of course, we're going to talk about those, but those are basically 5th job classes for male Slayer and female Mage. And lastly, I want to give a quick shout out to Necrofancy, who we're going to be talking about. There's actually a new swap system in the game, and at first we didn't have a lot of details. I didn't know if it was a brand new set. It is going to be a new set, and we've already got the translations as well as to what those are going to be. So we're going to talk about all of those things in this video, and again, shout out to all of those guys, as well as anybody else who helped contribute to translating, as well as, you know, just compiling all this information. I thank you guys a lot for that. So anyway, guys, let's start from the top though. We've got a new director, okay? This is kind of an aside to this discussion, but right now, as of late, I've seen a couple of videos talking about the current state of KDNF, how it has been declining in popularity, mostly ever since, you know, Female Priest was like the last time there was a big hypeness for the game, and ever since then it's been declining, and heavily so as of recently, and I would say a lot of people attribute it to the previous director, which he has resigned, as it says here. And it's something that I think a lot of people are happy about in Korea. I don't know all the details. I don't know if we can really blame him for all the things that happened, but basically he's already resigned and they've already got a new director in his stead. That is the director that's actually talking right here in J.K. Rowling's. I believe after the initial reveal and stuff, the director came out and kind of gave more details on that. It's not too in-depth. He kind of talks about, you know, Prey ISIS raid. They delayed Prey and ISIS raid to make it more complete, and so that's why it's taken so long. We've known about Prey ISIS raid for a long time. It's just we didn't know any details, and finally we've got at least a little bit of progress, and that should be coming shortly. And he talks about other things. We'll come kind of touch back on what the director says as we go over this. So, new director. So if you had problems with the old one, this is a little bit better, I guess. Okay, next thing, of course, is the 12-man raid content, Prey ISIS raid, okay? There was some confusion as to whether it was Prey raid, ISIS raid. Well, come to find out, there's a reason for that confusion, as we guys will check out the cinematic trailer right now. And yes, I guess one of them is Prey, one of them is ISIS, one of them's good, one of them's evil. That's the point of the confusion. I had no idea there was 2 of them. Gosh, this music is like, sounds like it's playing 3 songs at once or something. Looks like the evil one wins in the end. Very reminiscent of Dragon Ball Z. Alright, cool. So that's kind of a cinematic trailer. We're going to show a little bit of the actual promotional video, and those are usually maybe a little bit more interesting because they show actual gameplay. You're going to notice a couple things about this raid. First of all, very cinematic. As you will soon see, the director is somebody who really likes tying into the lore and stuff, so we don't have it yet, but in 95 cap there is this eagle that we ride for Tabor's dungeons, and then we're going to be using the eagle as a set piece. You have to, I think, defend against enemy waves, and you have to make sure your eagle's in good health while you're throughout this raid. Then you go here and you do various, these look like gimmicks right here. I'm not really sure, not too complex since you don't have a lot of area here, but they do show off some different bosses. Like this, for instance, is some kind of archer boss. Everybody was hoping that we would get an archer character in DFO. Unfortunately, that was not the case, at least for this reveal. But we do have an archer boss enemy, which looks pretty cool. And then after, you know, their takeout bosses, I guess to get to the next area, you've got to get onto your eagle buddy. Like I said, this is a 12-man raid, so there's going to be 3 different parties worth, and it looks like they're giving about an hour's worth of time up here to this dungeon, meaning, you know, it's probably going to be quite a difficult raid, like most raids should be and are. So, yeah, I think you're fighting enemies actually on the eagle. I do got to say, man, I really like how in 95 cap, I mean, we don't have it yet, but I've seen it many times already, and especially with this director, he wants to focus more on the lore. I really like whenever they fight on like set pieces like this, you know, when they have something that's different than just, you know, room to room dungeoning. You know, if they have something cool like you're fighting on an eagle, or you're fighting on a moving train, or if you're, you know, climbing up a tower or something, those kinds of things are really memorable in beat 'em up games. And it's good that they're making these boss fights and raids and stuff like that a little bit more epic like that. So pretty cool. I mean, that's just kind of a little preview. You're going to be riding the bird and killing bosses on the side. So as you guys can see, weapon accessories and special accessory upgrades are available. Of course, they will probably be the best in slot, which we've said many times now. It's like, dude, we keep talking about best in slot. It's like Heblon, best in slot. Beast, best in slot. 95 cap. Epics, best in slot, and then, you know, Prey Raid, best in slot. It's like we just keep upgrading and upgrading, and I think a lot of people, that's one sentiment I think a lot of people can complain about in KDNF right now, is that they just keep pumping out this old or this newer gear that's stronger than the last one, and have fun grinding it again. It's like it kind of delegitimizes the entirety of Beast, honestly, after the release of this. So but, you know, we'll have to see how it actually plays out. But, guys, a little bit about those accessories or the weapons and stuff is that if we go to the director's note, he talks a little bit about the actual raid. And the thing he mentions here is that the reward items are not just going to be one-way upgrades, but they're being prepared in a way that will give you the pleasure of choice and combination. Now, I wanted to highlight that because they've tried this once before. It sounds interesting, right? Like, oh, I can pick and choose something that is more suited towards my playstyle, or I can, you know, you don't have to have everybody having the same set, you know. And they tried this once before already. That is the Econ system, and everybody knows what happened with Econ. And if you don't, basically there are a lot of options in Econ gear that you can choose from. However, most of those options, in fact most all of them, involve just increasing your damage, but just in a different way, okay? And when you do that, it's pretty arbitrary at that point. Well, if I increase my damage with elemental damage or bonus damage, it doesn't matter. It's just increasing your damage, you know. So you're going to pick the most optimal option. Who cares about any of the other stupid options when you can just pick the best one, because all of them, all they do is increase your damage. So the only way that something like this works, where you have the ability to pick and choose your own combinations, is if those options are really unique from one another. Like, maybe you don't worry so much about increasing the damage. Maybe you're more worried about the cooldowns, or maybe there's potential for resets or something like that to make it more unique, so that you're not always sitting here like, I just want to do more damage, which is, you know, if they do that again, if they try to make another Econ set with these epics, then guess what? We're just going to find whatever the best one is, and we're going to pick that, and then we're just going to fuck off, you know? It's like, dude, you're not really giving us a choice when you have your options are all just ways to do damage. So I'm a little skeptical, because they've proven that with Econ that having choice is not always going to give you a lot of unique gameplay anyway. You got to give good choices. So I'm looking forward to it, but again, there is a complaint there with like, oh, we're just upgrading the stuff we just upgraded and we didn't even get to use it for that long before we had to upgrade it again. I can totally see that being a complaint. So jumping mode, guys. So moving on. Allows you to level up a character in a similar fashion to that of the jumping server. It can only be used twice a month. And I think it's funny that it was worded in this way, can only be used twice a month, as if twice a month is not, it's like not enough, you know. It's like, you can only do it twice. Like, what? That's 2 times too many in my opinion. So honestly, it's funny. Somebody, on Reddit here made a post. They're like, hey, should I even bother leveling up my characters if I can just use the jump server to get to max level? And everybody in that thread was just like, jumping server is just in preparation for 95 cap. We've never had the jumping server. Don't expect the jumping server. We've only ever had it one time, and it's just in preparation for a 95 cap. Well, guess what? Neopol doesn't think so. In fact, they thought it was such a good event that they decided to make it a feature that you can abuse twice a month. And in my opinion, it's just baffling, really. I mean, I get it. Here's the thing about it. Here's what I'm complaining about it. They've streamlined the game so heavily since when I've started, and they've streamlined it to such a degree where it almost feels like Neopol wants to forget about leveling entirely, right? They just want to they've streamlined this process in the scenario system, and it was already really easy to level. Now they made it even easier. And then now with the jumping server, it's like, dude, why not when I just make my character, it's already max level. It's already max level, and it's doing all the content that apparently the game thinks is more important. I have no idea. You know, jumping mode was a cool event idea because it made something, it's something that's like, oh, this is cool, I can level up a character in a few hours. But now it's a feature of the game. And now the person who made the comment there was like, is it worth even bothering leveling the regular server? Well, I can make an argument that probably not. You could just wait for the jump server and then level 2 characters a month. Most people don't even play more than 2 characters at all. So yeah, just have 2 characters and you're done. Like I said, it trivializes the whole idea of progression in leveling, which I think the main reason people play MMOs is for progression, but I don't think you can claim that leveling is a type of progression in this game anymore, because they've trivialized it so heavily and streamlined it so heavily. So, I mean, some people don't see it as a complaint. Yeah, maybe you do make a character and just it's max immediately, but for me, that's just like baby moding the game. That's like casualizing the game. It's like, dude, you have to put in the effort to get your character to max level. But I've never played an MMO where leveling was just thrown to the wayside like it is like this. It's weird. It's a weird one for me. Call me old-fashioned, but I do take pride in the time and effort it takes to actually leveling a character, where DFO does not feel the same way. Doesn't matter to me. I already got all my characters, but good for you guys who are making new characters. So anyway, moving on. Harlem, Legendaries, and Epics will share a set effect, and the Epics will be buffed as well. Let's talk about this point as well, because it's mentioned in the director's notes, where he talks about the Harlem Epics. Basically what it means, I mean, just to summarize really quickly, all he's doing is making sure that there isn't any negative synergy. For instance, the right side lacking options that the left side doesn't have. Just making your gear stronger, okay? The worst thing that you can do is design gear and then have negative synergy on that gear. So just making the options better so that you don't have to be like, well, I can't use this set because it's fucking broken, you know? So fixing those, that's what he means when he's buffing those epics. Now here's the main thing right here, okay? And I think this is a bigger deal than people might let on, because for a long time our gearing system has been stagnant by the idea of you having to replace an entire set effect. Okay, let's go back to 85 cap. What had to happen? If you had a legendary set, you were decently strong, but you say you got a random epic and it's pretty good epic, you could not start replacing your legendary set with these epics until you could replace all 5 pieces. If we were talking about an armor set, all 5 pieces at once. Even though we're talking epics and they're good epics, you can't replace the legendary set with just one epic. You have to replace all 5 at once, more or less. Because you couldn't afford to lose the set effect. That's kind of the point here, is that the set effects were so powerful. They tried to make it a little bit better in 90 cap by having the ability to have a 3 set effect instead of relying so heavily on the 5 set effect. So you can have a partial set effect. You'd only have to replace 3 parts at one time instead of the full 5. That's better, but it's still like, you know, you have to do it all at once. That's kind of the main thing here. Even when you upgrade your armor set, when you're doing, say, Luke, and you have a level 90 unupgraded set, you have to upgrade the whole set at once. You can't just upgrade 3 pieces, because then you're only going to have a 3 set effect and 2 random off epics. It's like, no, you have to do it all at once. So this idea here is a good idea, where they share the same set effect. So now when you start upgrading your Harlem legendary pieces, and you get the epic that corresponds with you, you can replace it right away and get an immediate damage boost instead of holding on to this good gear and waiting till you get a full set effect. Like, no, they share the same set effect, and then you can just upgrade immediately, and that's how it should be. Honestly, I think that's a much better way to do it. Now, I'm not sure as to whether or not they're sharing the exact same set effect. My guess is they will be, and then most of the gear itself, like the epics themselves, will have higher base stats on them to justify upgrading from legendary to epic. So that's how I think it's going to be. I don't think we have too much details on the rest of that, but much needed and appreciated change. Okay, this topic right here just says 90 non-set epics will no longer drop. In the drop rate for Tabor's weapon will be increased in 95 regular hell mode, and Tabor's hell farming will no longer drop 90s. But both of those things essentially means they're limiting the pool of obtainable epics, refining the pool. You're going to get more often, going to be getting more useful stuff. 95s only in Tabor's hells, and set pieces only in 95 hells. So that's good. I mean, higher drop chance, basically. That's what that means. My only concern is that there were some pretty good non-set 90 pieces that you will no longer be able to get anymore, like on Satyr, for Satyr mostly. But my guess is, in fact, I already know the 95 sets for Satyr are hella good, and they probably are not complaining about that. So moving on, though, there is a new hell farming area called the Celestial Tier. You'll need more materials to enter, but it'll have a higher drop chance. And really, this is actually, Celestial Tier is actually the Temporal Rift for this region, which I do have videos for that. Shout out to KAOGP for this video. But essentially, it's just Temporal Rift for this area. So as you can see, it's just a 95 area with Temporal Rift. And so just like Temporal Rift here in the regular server, essentially that means you slightly increased DI expenditure, but then you have a slightly increased epic drop chance. Now, I had people in my tips video that I made pretty recently tell me that Temporal Rift is a viable option, and I'm wrong, Rick. So you know what, I still would be a little bit skeptical, but you know what, their points are pretty valid. I would say, you know, okay, Temporal Rift maybe not as bad as it seems, and with 95 hells, maybe you're just trying to get your epic. You're gonna want to try to get your epics as quickly as possible, and this is probably gonna be the best way to do it. So there it is. It looks the same. You're gonna get related materials, and you know, you just do a retry. And the dungeon's only 4 rooms wide, you guys can see here, instead of the usual 5 from Temporal Rift. So that's, I guess, the main point to mention here. But it does drop materials. And it only takes 4 rooms to do. It takes a few seconds, and pretty nice. So that is the Celestial Tier area. New Harlem area dungeon, Operation Hope. This is a big one. This is big news. Big news Morgans, let me tell you guys. So it's a belt scroll type dungeon, which is hilarious. I'll show you what that means in a second. It will serve as a farming dungeon for swap enhancement items. The director did not disclose much further, and when I made my initial recap of this video, that was going to be the end of it, since I didn't have a lot of information on it. But now we do, again, thanks to Necrofancy translating and finding out what the sets are. And they are indeed new pieces of gear. So we're going to cut to that really quickly, just to show you what the dungeons actually look like. Again, shout out to KAOGP. He does have a video on it again. Essentially, this is kind of an Act 6 recap, but basically there's this dungeon right here. This is, like they said, a belt type dungeon, and what that means right there, I don't know if you guys realized it, usually in DFO, when you go to the door, there's a door, and then it loads up a new map. The belt type dungeons are like one long take of a dungeon, right? Which is kind of cool. It means that there's less loading screens right there, just transitioned immediately to the next room, and it's a lot more continuous because of that. I love that. I think that's an awesome thing. That's functionality. You know, you can do a lot with that. And make it more You can make some of the maps even randomized, have randomized enemies. You're not so stagnant with it. I mean, you can do a lot with a system like this. I think it makes it a lot more fluid. I like that. It's such a little thing, but I feel like they can do a lot. And hilariously enough, people are already abusing that fact pretty heavily. I actually got a funny video right here of somebody doing abusing his weapon master right now with the lightning draw sword and fucking killing everything. Like, this is fucked up, man. But that's exactly how the skill is supposed to be designed, I guess. So, hella cheese, ain't it? But that's kind of cool that they have dungeons like this anyway. So, you know, it's kind of funny that he can abuse a system like that. But basically, you know, you can either get them as drops outright when you clear the instance. There's like branching paths and stuff like that. It's not too important. But you can either get the drops outright, or you can use a material to purchase the items to pick up the Abysmal swap sets. And this, again, shout out to Necrofancy and other people who helped, because there is a lot of information. But here's a quick summary. Basically how it looks like. You guys can read this, but essentially what it means is, this picture right here pretty much demonstrates it, is that you have a 9-piece armor and accessory swap set, and it is a full set. And this 9-piece set includes your weapon, which has a lot of the same kind of stats that you already see with the legendary weapons that exist on some of the characters. Now, not all characters have a legendary weapon as of currently, and when this patch comes out, everybody will have at least a legendary weapon to use in conjunction with their swap set. It is a full set. And then so you have the 9-piece armor and accessory set, including the weapon, and then you have a 3-piece sub-equipment set, which includes the earring, which historically has never been used for swaps. So you use the sub-equip magic stone earring for at least a +1. Let's talk about the actual set effects themselves, because there are different types. For instance, everybody has the initial Abysmal Glimpse weapon, but then they can upgrade that Glimpse weapon into a S grade of that weapon, which will be slightly stronger than the base version. So right off the bat, you get a weapon. It's a swap weapon, and it usually has +1 to a skill as well as a raw damage amount, which is, you know, kind of arbitrary. This for Soulbender it's only 9%, but for Blade Masters 13%. But you get skill level +1, and what you're going to notice is that you're going to be over leveled on the skill levels if you are in the optimal setup as of right now, because I believe you can get up to 8 skill levels without using any of your equipment slots, which this is going to be a little bit overkill, because almost all of these have at least a couple skill levels here. You can see this set effect gives you 3 skill levels. The weapon gives you 1 skill level. It's just like, you know, there's a lot of skill levels to be had. You're going to be over the maximum more than likely if you're already at the optimal setup. This is good news, though, if you're not, though. So that's the weapon. You have a 6 and a 9 set effect. This includes all the armors and the accessories. And, you know, for the whole 9 set effect, I mean, you're getting quite a bit of, you know, actually not even all that much, but quite a bit of, you know, this is giving you more crit damage, this is giving you more skill attack, 24%, and that's for a whole 9-piece set, including the weapon, but you're already getting quite a bit there. It's hard to tell you whether or not all of these sets are going to be better than your existing set, but across the board, I think Necrofancy said, across the board, it should be about a 10% damage increase if you get the set. And then you have your options of a special equipment set effect. So there are 3 different sets for the sub-equip, magic stone, and the earrings, and there you can see the effects here. You can either choose to get +3 to your skill, swap skill. You can either choose to get +2 to your swap skill and then get an extra additional stat, or you can choose to get +1 to your skill and then get a lot more raw stats. This is kind of nice because, like I said, you might get over leveled with, in fact, you most likely will get over leveled with your swap skill. If you went overboard and got like a +3 title, got plant emblems and all that shit, then these skill levels will be over leveling you. So this will probably be the best option for min-maxers. This will probably be the best option if you don't have all the titles and shit yet. So everybody has that kind of format. It's very streamlined. I do kind of like that. It kind of mitigates all the confusion with all these extra swaps. Like, for instance, Abysmal Glimpse weapon. This is straight up replacing the Ancient Ruins lightsaber, especially if you get the S version. So you don't have to worry about Ancient Ruins. You don't have to worry about anything, really. In fact, all of your swap weapons that exist in the game right now are probably going to lose a lot of their value because of this fact. The only issue here is, because these are set effects, you are going to be losing a lot of the ability to, a lot of your current value of your swap sets, because you have to replace all the pieces at once. I mean, even if you have a really good legendary weapon, you can't really rely on it with this new system if you want to capitalize on it, which most likely these are going to be stronger. But if nothing else, you're going to be able to get something out of the 3-set effect with the earring, magic stone, and sub-equipment. Since you can't even utilize the earring, this is actually utilizing it a little bit better. So go check out all the stats here. Again, Necrofancy went through a lot of effort to do this. This is like coming right after the update. Like, trust me, there was a lot of effort involved, so I really appreciate you guys, whoever worked on this, Necrofancy included. Appreciate it. This is information I definitely wanted to see. All right, next is the weapon skin. This is, if you don't know, a transmog system. DFO has excellent customization, but something that I've been flabbergasted by is why they haven't done something like this, where you have to wear the stupid ass weapon and display that because that's a primary weapon, but you can't skin over it. You can only skin over it with the weapon avatar skins, and those are very selective, often very stupid looking weapons. So there's some cool weapons in the game. You never used to be able to, skin your weapons, and now it'll be an option. Dude, I remember a time when I was using Yang Sword back in 85 cap. Yang Sword is the dumbest weapon in the goddamn game. I had to mod it, like change the client and mod it to make it look decent, and now it's going to be a feature in the game. So thank God it's 15 years too late, but we're finally getting it. Now, the one thing we're still missing, I mean, I think we have skins for almost everything to customize all of your character's appearance, but the one thing we're still missing is the creature skin. So hopefully that's the next thing, because you shouldn't be stuck wearing these fucking ugly ass, Three Kingdoms fucking take up half the map pets just because they have good stats. Okay, they're the dumbest looking pets in the game, but you should be able to skin over their stupid retarded ass tree, whatever they have. Next thing, this is kind of a small point, but it kind of ties into the fact that this point up here, there's going to be a new Coliseum dungeon, a Second Pandemonium Rendezvous. And this coincides with the fact that once we get 95 cap, they're not going to have level 90 non-set epics will no longer drop. And the main reason we're doing Imperial Coliseum now is to upgrade our non-set 90s into set 90s. So if there's no more droppings of the level 90 non-set epics, there's no real reason to do Imperial Coliseum. I mean, there is slight reason to do it, but that's the main reason. So you're obviously going to have to update it. So they have introduced a new, I guess, region, but we'll have to see what the prices are for doing that. All right, the last couple things we got to talk about here are the 2 new subclasses. So I kind of already alluded to it earlier, but yes, we do have 2 new subclasses, and they're 5th job classes. Now, the thing I got to mention, and why I wanted to shout out to Raytel, who found out the new sprites were added for the female mage and the male slayer, is that this is kind of a big deal, right? They have gone through the effort of respriting all of the avatars, all of the weapons, and coinciding with this new sprite map for the male slayer and female mage. That is a ton of effort for just one class. In fact, I would go so far as to say it might be easier for Neopol to just make a brand new class than to try and reclassify and recode and make new sprites and all this shit for just one new class. But the thing you got to keep in mind, and the reason why I am all for this, is that they can, use this as a springboard to update the game. First and foremost, yes, we do get a brand new class out of it because they added new animations and they're going to coincide with this 5th class. They can also go back and update some of the old sprites that may have been, or animations that may have been kind of janky for your class. They can update any of the existing Slayer classes with these new animations. So it's just kind of, it's a way to update the class in that way. And lastly, if they added enough animations, if they went through the trouble of adding all these animations, they do open the door for a potential 6th class as well, or something like that. Basically, what I'm saying is they're not as limited as they were before. They added enough animations to make a brand new class. They could potentially make another one if they want, and they can update the existing sprites. So it's worth it for them to go through this effort. And trust me, it is a lot of effort. Just imagine, okay? Just imagine what kind of work it's going to take to redraw all of your sprites, all of the weapons, on just a few frames of animation. Like, dude, thousands of hours, man. I feel like thousands of man hours at least. But let's go ahead and look at the 5th subclass for M Slayer. I'm kind of gonna go talk about how he plays. Essentially, he's the ghost. He utilizes his ghost in a different way. You can see he can kind of shoot it out, and it's like its own independent fighter, and he can choose to either teleport to the ghost that he sends out, as you guys can see right there. He kind of jumps to it, or he can use an attack and mimic the attack that is used. So I think you're going to see here pretty shortly. He's going to throw the ghost out, and he's going to be in a different location than the ghost, and then use a draw sword attack or something like that, and he's going to be able to damage. Right here you can see the ghost is over here on the right. He's over here on the left, uses the draw sword, and both of them use the draw sword, which is pretty awesome. Obviously, he uses a katana type weapon. He's very fast because he can teleport, and he reminds me a lot of like a mix between like Weapon Master, who's obviously designed to be really fast, as well as you guys remember the old Dark Lord who had Sieg. Sieg was a similar system where you can use certain attacks to kind of semi-control the ghost, right? And you can control the ghost, you can obviously send it out, and it would also mimic attacks that you were doing. So the old Sieg is kind of what I'm reminded of, and honestly, this kind of play is right up my wheelhouse, man. Let me tell you, I love fast type classes, and I like the fact that he has this gimmick to him that is call it what you will, I call it a meme or whatever. It does seem like you can be a lot. The skill ceiling is pretty high on a character like this. It's at least that's what it seems like, because you can control the ghost. You have to, you know, put him in the right place, and you can either jump to him or mimic an attack or whatever. When you have fast type gameplay and a gimmick you have to worry about, just makes it seem like there's a lot to learn with this character, and I'm looking forward to it. So this character I'm really excited about. But he, at the end of the day, he's just another standard character. So yes, I'm most excited of the two that have been announced to play this guy. But he's pretty straightforward as far as what his purpose and role is going to be. It's just another Slayer type character, fast moving, with a little bit of a gimmick, which is pretty cool. So there's a little bit of the gameplay as well. That was a promotional video. Some people have been, I think they had these computers set up on the actual KDNF festival, so people were trying them out. You guys can check out these videos, but essentially it's kind of the same things that we've already seen. A lot of AoE attacks, I mean repeating attacks because of the ghost, and pretty cool. So yep, I'm definitely going to be trying that guy out. No, pretty cool. He kind of grouped them up and was able to hold them in place right there. It's pretty cool. And the next class, okay, I'm just going to show you guys the class itself, and then we'll talk about it, because this is a huge deal. Okay, the class itself, if you guys have ever played League of Legends and know Annie and her little bear Tibbers, that's what this character design reminds me of the most. You can control Tibbers here by doing like AoE attacks, as well as, you know, you'll notice Tibbers always stays in front of your own character, so it's not like a summon like in the general sense, but I like that a little bit better, where you have to actually control the bear a little bit. Here you can see she does have quite big AoE holds. In fact, I think she has more than one. Has these AoE attacks that explode on enemies, which is some pretty good, decent AoE. And then there's yet another, I believe she might have multiple holds with this vine type skill that she has. Then you can use the bear offensively here. There's another hold, the bear jumps, bear does the Berserker Barrage. Reminds me of a lot of the Avenger there. Now here is where, oh man, this is big news. So essentially what this is a party-wide buff. When she casts this skill, it's a party-wide buff. You can see everybody in the party has this like little blue heart in the shield. And then she can select one party member out of all of them to get a very special heart, kiss, whatever. Somebody call the cops. Okay, this is really inappropriate that a little girl is doing this to one member out of the party. But yeah, she gives a party-wide buff, and then one member gets a very specific, very special buff. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a second, but it's a big deal. She also seems to have the ability to, I don't know what this is doing. It could either be recovering mana, as you guys can see here. It's like recovering their mana. Can be used to recover a little bit. You can see this area right here looks like it's setting up some kind of protective barrier, because you can see it goes right through the tornado. And so she kind of, basically what this means is she has the buffing capabilities of a buff type character. She can have a Nen guard, Nen bubble essentially, to block through tornado, and she can recover your MP What type of character are they making here, Neopol? What are you doing with this teddy bear female mage class? To answer that question, we've got to look at what they've described her. And this is where I can't believe it. But wait, she's a buffer with tons of utilities. She can substitute the current role of female and male satyrs. Essentially what that means is, currently in the game right now, we only have 2 buffers, true buffers in the whole game, and those are female crusader and male crusader. She is said to be one of those buffers, and here is kind of talking about the current way that they want to design the game. They want to have every party to have 1 buffer, 1 pure deeps, and 2 synergies. She's not a synergy as I thought initially. She, as far as the developers have said, is a buffer type character, meaning that she is in the same class as M and F Satyr, which is insane. This is huge news, big news, Morgan, even bigger than before. We have finally got a new character to rival the effectiveness of the female and male crusaders. Now, we're not sure as to what will affect her buffs, but we do know that her buffs will be based on the doll stack, so at least that means you might have to still be playing offensively on that character, but she will be giving buff. And like I was kind of alluding to earlier, she has a buff effect that kind of buffs the whole party, and then she has 1 single buff that buffs up a single user. Of course, you're probably going to use it on your pure deeps character, but that's kind of how it goes. So this is big news. In fact, I couldn't believe it. When I read it, I was like, this can't be right. Okay, there's no way in fuck that they're going to make somebody as strong as a female and male crusader, because I figured there's a lot of gear that is specifically designed for female and male crusaders. All of their skills are based off of the idea of them, only casting buffs, only having defensive buffs and stuff like that. It's crazy to think anybody would ever be on that level again. And finally, Neopol has decided that, you know what, there are other characters we can make that can fill that role as well. And I think this is a really good thing. I still don't believe it. Honestly, if, I kind of said it before, but if they decide to have another buff type character, then they have to make sure that all buff type characters, this exists right now for the female male crusader, but their buffs don't stack. So if they have in the Enchantress class be a new character in this kind of small, very exclusive group of characters that are buff characters, none of the buffs can synergize with each other. They can't, because all of a sudden you'll just break the game completely wide open. You can only have 1 buffer in the party. Can't have more than 1 because they don't stack. That's how it has to be. But I'm happy. I'm actually really happy about the idea of them adding new buff, because you know what? Some people might like support characters, but they don't like how the female male crusader play. As long as these other characters that they add are just as potent as them, and they can get gear that is catered to their buffs, I think that they can do pretty well. In fact, I don't want to get into this discussion right now, but I'm almost to that point where I feel like they could potentially make some of the existing characters in the game, put them into that exclusive group as well, make them pure buffers instead of just, synergies or deeps, because we have so many characters in the roster right now, and all of them are either pure deeps or synergy, and only 3 of them now, 2 of them right now, but 3 of them in the future are going to be buffers, which is, if you like buffing, I think there are characters in the game that could serve that role and not change much of their gameplay. But I don't want to get into that discussion. More than likely what Neopol's going to do is when they release 5th jobs for classes, if they're going to go back and release 5th jobs for classes, that they're going to try to add more buffers into this exclusive list, which I think is perfectly fine. That's all I got to say on that. It's going to be a big deal, obviously. Again, a little bit of gameplay. I do like the fact that, again, Tibbers here is not a complete summon. It is just a companion that always is in front of you like a stand, like Necromancer a little bit. But, man, she's got hold, she's got Nengard, she's got MP recovery, she's got a single target buff and a party buff. Like, holy shit. We haven't seen her awakenings yet, so we don't know. She has to have, if she wants to be a buffer like Satyrs, like, yes, their supporting buffs are nice, but the real thing that makes them crazy is their awakenings, and she has to have comparable awakenings or she can't be on the same level. So we don't have information on their awakenings just yet, but trust me when I say it's got to be big deal. This is a big deal. This is kind of shaping the landscape of what the game could be. Not putting so heavy an emphasis on the satyrs because there's more than one buffer in the game, more than one playstyle. You know, honestly, I kind of like the fact that Enchantress is a buffer type character, but also seems to have some offensive capability, maybe as well, at least with better holds and stuff like that. So who knows? But god dang, that is big news, man. Let me tell you, the future of the game could change on a whim because of this revelation. Of course, they're gonna have to balance it really heavily with the gear and making sure that they get buffed as well, but that's some big news. Now, as far as the actual content of the Winter Festival, in terms of the Dungeon Fighter Online content, that's about all I have to talk about, guys. DNF Mobile was announced. In fact, the old director, not the one that just resigned recently, but the one before that, he took on these two projects, DNF Mobile as well as Project Barbecue. DNF Mobile, essentially what it is, if you guys played Nexon era DFO, it's that ported over to the mobile. I don't have much else to say about it. You can control it just like you do on the computer. Of course, it may feel a little bit more clunky than that, but it's just old DFO on the mobile, and I can't even tell you if we're going to get it in the West if ever, to be honest with you. I'm not too hype about that, but I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about this little gem right here, because this, honestly, let me just tell you guys, okay, I've been on YouTube for it's got to be close to 10 years now. Okay, I know I've been playing DFO for the greater part of 3 years now, but let me tell you, my history in the channel and the games that I really enjoy are in the action MMO genre, and most of the games in the action MMO genre are not like DFO. DFO is really unique. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up MMO. Like, you don't find that anywhere else. What you normally find is something along the lines of Project BBQ, and this is developed by Neopol, and it is developed by Action Studio, which is kind of the team that's working on this project. What this is, guys, is probably, it's a dream come true, honestly. We're showing a little bit of footage right now of the areas. It is three-dimensional, as you guys can see. Most action games that I have played in the past have been three-dimensional and action-based, and I personally think it's the future of MMOs. I think this is the direction all games should go in. But yes, you see it here first. That's a Weapon Master right there. This is a Berserker right there with his red arm, and Weapon Master with his white, and it's 3D DFO, guys. Or some people said it, 3DFO. You might recognize some enemies right there. We do have the Frost Witch right there, goblins as well. I mean, there's some things I'm noticing already. First of all, the skills and the animations look awesome. You know, he just used triple slash right there. Evasive techniques right there, dodging through attacks, back attacks and stuff. A little bit of stagger on attacks as well as sidestepping mid animations. Juggle combos, as you guys are going to see here. Juggling into the air. This is a huge deal for PvP. Depending on how they do that system makes or breaks how the PvP and stuff are going to go. And trust me, games like this excel at making awesome PvP if done right. Again, more juggle combos, so juggles are still going to be a big thing. Draw sword right there, lightning draw sword. You see skills that you've seen before, guys. There's Mountainous Wheel into Raging Fury, you know. Attacking, you know, the enemy right here is getting staggered. He just used, I think, a Bloodlust grab on him, and then he's going to use a Bloody Twister right here. Dude, it's 3D DFO, man. This is the shit. And like I said, I kind of have a vested interest in this whole genre. I would, you know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I would say I'm heavily qualified to talk on this subject. I've played so many action MMOs, especially Korean-based one. There's an Outrage Break. Here right now, I think I saw a post much later that recognized that, hey, this dragon right here, I've never seen it in DFO, but you might have seen it in DFO. This is actually Gruff from before he turned into a giant skeleton, because he shoots lasers and shit. So, yeah, you're just recognizing all the same kind of beats, you know, same enemies and stuff like that. It's fucking 3D DFO, man. What can I say? Outrage Break. The boss fight looks, right now, it doesn't look like, I mean, he's dodging lasers and shit. It does look like some gimmicks you have to deal with, but looks pretty amazing, guys. Project BBQ. Now, we'll just say right now, this is still in mega development phase, okay? I know this was kind of showcasing a lot of interesting stuff, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm not even going to expect this game to even be out in Korea for several years. Okay, so it coming to the West might even be questionable, but guys, the video's not over. Okay, I do want to, this next part is super hype, but I also want to say, oh my god, I couldn't even say it in time. Dude, look! Oh god. Dodge underneath, sidestep to the left, sway behind, stagger into some kind of awakening or something, hurricane and roll, knockdown. Dude, oh my god, oh my god. There's so many things I want to talk about this. I mean, dude, first of all, let's not beat around the bush. That is a female monk. They took her out of DFO so that they could put her here in this game, Project BBQ. They took my bae, and they even gave her the short hair. Oh man, they made her fucking awesome too. That right there. I also like the fact that they showed a little bit of how the combat's gonna work. I mean, they literally just showed that duck. You can use duck to evade through attacks. Have mid attack do a sidestep to avoid another attack. Sway behind to avoid another attack. This is gonna be awesome as far as I can see. And this is my genre. This is my specialty, I would say. So I'm really looking forward to it. But again, like I said, I'm not gonna hold my breath. So I'll end the video with that hypeness. Like I said, don't hold your breath. We're still going to have to suck it up with DFO, I guess. No, I love DFO. But trust me when I say that if you can combine my favorite genre of action MMO, 3D action MMOs, and combine it with the lore and the history that I have with Dungeon Fighter Online, combine it into one, you might have made the best game ever if you do it right, if you do the combat right. And as far as I can see, you've done a pretty good job. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. This has been the second time I've recorded this video, so hopefully this one goes through. But I'm done for tonight, and I will catch you nights later.